the world, it's me, Queen Nightmare, and I am going to do I don't know which part it is, but I know it's 2006. I know the last one was very dramatic. Harry sipped his store-bought wine from a plastic cup and watched, unamused as his colleagues tried another round of beer pong at the desk across from him. There was lots of heckling and splashing of alcohol, and not much actual skill involved, but they seemed to be having a good time. Time of it, nonetheless. It wasn't the most ruckus of parties, but Harry was having a nice time regardless. The office had given them spending money to get a pretty decent amount of booze and chip and dip in, and one of the girls from accounts had hooked up her iPod to play a wide selection of tunes that so far was keeping everyone happy. Harry hadn't had a Halloween plans until a few guys had suggested something official from work, and he was grateful. It was unusual his friends hadn't sorted a get-together. He'd been feeling a bit down at the idea he was finally getting old. Surely 26 wasn't too grown up for Halloween, was it? He decided not to dwell on it and topped up his slightly warm white wine before joining the girls dancing to Pussycat Dolls. He felt like he'd been cheating just picking up a standard cop costume from the store earlier that in the day, and had a belated panic that he was about to reenact his fateful YMCA year from high school. But it turned out the girls thought he was even more adorably gay than that, and kept pulling him over to chat and dance. It wasn't always the most riveting of conversations. He hadn't had the heart yet to admit he didn't want actually watch One Tree Hill, but he wasn't thankful not hanging. Sorry guys, I had to sneeze and I paused it for a while. Where was I? Watched One Tree Hill, but he was thankful not to be hanging out by himself, at least. There was a commotion by the entrance to their floor as a couple dozen more people piled in, none of which Harry recognized. "Who's that?" he asked Natalie, one of the girls on his team. "Oh," she said, her face lighting up. "We invited the office form a couple towns away. You know, the one with the legal and logistics teams. I think the idea is to warm up here, then get some cabs to one of the decent bars." Harry nodded and thinking that sounded fun, until his heart just about stopped. "Oh, fuck," he cried, spinning around in horror, trying to decide what to do before he ran out of time. Natalie looked both confused and amused. "What?" she said, grinning. Harry could hear the people coming further inside, chatting with mutual friends, and adding appreciated packs of beer that they're already diminishing supply. "There's a guy here," said Harry stiffly, looking for ways to escape, but he was limited. "An ex?" Natalie suggested. Harry shook his head. "No, but we hooked up a couple of times, and the last time was bad. He hates me." Natalie Natalie, good friend that she was, took a quick look around too. "Which one?" she asked. Harry sighed. "He's the the blonde and white, with a yellow jacket, a fake mustache." He found it pretty cruel that not only was Draco Malfoy here at his work, but was also dressed as his childhood hero, Freddie Mercury. What were the chances? "He's by the booze," Nate whispered. "He hasn't spotted you yet. Go under the desk and slip to the copy room. I can text you when he's distracted. If you want, we can sneak off to the bar ahead of everyone else." Harry sighed. He really didn't want to be chased out of his own party, but at the same time, he absolutely did not want to relive the crashing embarrassment of that fundraiser. "You're an angel," he said, kissing her on the cheek. "See you in a minute." He dropped on all fours and made it under a few rows of desks before scuttling down the aisles to the stockroom where they kept paper and copy machine, feeling faintly ridiculous, but not enough to change his mind and go back. Crap, so Draco worked for the same company as him. How had he missed that? He supposed a lot of people had come back home or thereabout after college, but he'd not heard any mention from his friends he saw regularly that his old crush had done the same. He sighed and rubbed under his glasses, wished he'd worn his contacts, but bothered to try and do his hair, not worn such cheesy getup. Ugh! Who was he kidding? He didn't want to see Draco. He wanted to escape. He may still have the same old flutterings of feelings at the sight of him, but Draco had looked at him with such disgust as they'd parted ways last time. There was no way Harry wanted to experience that again. His phone beeped in his pocket, and he fished it out to see Nate telling him the coast was clear to meet her in the front desk. He blew a sigh of relief. In 10 minutes, he'd be able to forget any of this had happened and drown his sorrows with vodka. He peeked out back into the office to see that Draco was indeed nowhere in sight, and headed straight for the exit. Thankfully, he didn't need to swing by his desk to pick anything up. This year, he'd appointed for a costume with pockets, so he already had his keys and wallet on him. Natalie waved to him as he approached, slinging her coat over her dead cheerleader outfit. "You ready? You're not leaving already, are you, McDonald?" said one of the guys from the design department that Harry strongly suspected was highly ambitious of getting into Natalie's pants. Poor fool. She was unperturbed. Perturbed? Yeah, I think it is, though. "We're heading over first to secure the booking. Make sure we don't lose our tables." Being part of the marketing team, that was pretty plausible lie. And Harry winked at Nate when the guy couldn't see. Her face fell, though. Her eyes looked over his shoulder, and he hardly had time to panic before the voice spoke. "Harry?" He screwed up his face in disappointment as Nate mouthed, "I'm sorry," at him. But he shook his head, and she'd done her best. As if going to the gallows, he turned and did his best attempt at astonishment. "Draco!" he said. "What on earth are you doing here?" His tone was light, and he was struggling to hide the shame that was rising up so easily from the memory of their previous sordid encounter. "I work here. Well, not here. I work for this company." He looked more good, despite the silly facial hair and having filled out of little more since the last time they'd seen each other. Is this your office?" Harry nodded. So far, there were no sneers or appalled faces. He actually seemed genuinely happy to see Harry. The torturous butterflies were back in Harry's stomach faster than he could blink. "He's just being nice," he told himself, scornfully. "Yes, I've been here for a couple of years. I had no idea you'd move back as well." Draco shook his head. "Only a couple of months ago. My mom got ill and I thought it would be better to be near home." "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that," Harry exclaimed genuinely. "Is she okay?" Draco smiled, but it was a little tight, and Harry's heart ached for him. "I'm sure it'll be fine," he said with a deep, assuring breath. "She's tough, and they caught it early. So there's every hope. How's your family?" Before he could answer, Harry felt a hand placed on his shoulder. He glanced down to see Natalie smiling at him, along with another emotion dancing in her eyes he couldn't quite read. "I'll catch you later," she said. And Harry made a protest, but she turned to Draco too, quickly. "Nice to meet you," she said, then slipped out of the door with a couple of her other friends, apparently to actually secure their booking at the bar. Harry turned back to Draco, a bit at a loss. Draco, though, wasn't easily thrown. "Oh, you haven't got a drink yet. Drink. Come on, let's fix that." They filled two flimsy cups full of white wine from the stash in the buckets of ice, and Draco steered them over to the empty wheelchairs. "So your mom and dad are okay?" he said, sipping his cup, then realized that a jolt he was sporting a mustache with absorbing half of his drink. "Ugh," he laughed. "That's going to get old quickly." He lamented, wiping the booze off his lip. Harry laughed. He wouldn't have expected this at all. "Yeah, they're great actually. My dad's been meeting up with his school friends a lot, golfing and stuff, embracing his middle age. My mom likes to complain, but she's thrilled to get some time to herself." Draco smiled, and his eyes sparkling, and took another sip, this time more carefully so his fake mustache didn't get soaked. Harry decided to fully suit, accepting that Draco was apparently not going to humiliate him for the pastime. "What about Weasley? I heard he was around and about too." Harry was impressed. Draco had even thought to ask, and he sat up a little straighter. "Yeah, he and Hermione bought a place near my family's. He's got a bunch of nieces and nephews. He wanted to be around to see grow up, I think, he said, voicing his suspicions for the same time to anyone out loud. Somehow, it felt safe telling Draco after all this time apart. I think he might be gearing up to pop the question. Draco slapped his knee, the contact sending electricity through Harry's body. That's awesome, he said sincerely. Congratulations to both of them, if so. You be the best man, I guess. Harry shrugged, but he couldn't help the pleased grin that crept onto his face. Maybe, he said. There was a pause as Draco leaned forward and fiddled with the lip on his cup. And you? He said with a notable, fierce cheerfulness. You're still with that what's-his-face? With what's-his-face? Harry couldn't help but bark a laugh that made a couple of people look over, even with the music playing. Mac? Fuck no, thank God, he said. That was pretty toxic. That was pretty toxic, that one. Funny how sometimes you can't see a thing until you're out of it. The truth was, he'd kept up with Mac for a whole 3 years, trying to make it work. But eventually Harry had to admit to himself that no matter what he did, he just wasn't happy. That was when he packed up his life and come back home to this very office. He gave a fleeting thought to how many decisions, little and large, that had led to him sitting there once more with Draco Malfoy. It was kind of mind-blowing once you looked at it like that. I'm sorry, Draco said kindly, and Harry couldn't ignore the way his heart beat a little faster. Oh, don't be, he said with a wave of his hand. It was for the best, trust me. He thought maybe Draco wasn't just referring to his breakup, but maybe he was worrying about the past his actions that night had played. But Harry didn't want to rehash that. No, I'm single, he said with a nod, realizing how obvious it sounded. But he wanted to be clear after their last mishap. Can't seem to find one that'll stick. Tell me about it, Draco agreed, leaning back, kicking his feet up onto the cardboard box by the desk. Where are they hiding all the cute guys with good jobs and senses of humor? Harry laughed and licked his lips, something sparking in his chest he hadn't felt in quite some time. I don't know, he said, but they're doing a really good job of it so far. Hey, Harry! One of the guys shouted across the room. You want in on this taxi? He looked around. Another group of people were heading out, but there was still plenty of colleagues left, so he shook his head. I'm all right, for now, thanks, he said, raising his plastic cup in a toast. He turned back to Draco, but then felt anxious. Unless you wanted, he began, but Draco stopped him by gently taking the cup from his hand, their fingers brushing together. No, I'm good, he said, smiling warmly. I'll get us a top-up. By their third top-up, half of the people had trickled away to the next party, and Draco had abandoned his fake mustache, rubbing his face in relief that after getting the glue off of his lip. By the fifth, they relocated to the break area with the couches, legs propped up on the coffee table, littering with year-old industry publications. "Do you wonder," Harry asked, as the few people were left slow danced to James Blunt around the autosmorphical dimmed lights, how things could have turned out differently? "What do you mean?" Draco asked, blowing on the tea Harry had just made them to take a break from the cheap wine. They were side by side on the same sofa now, watching the couples as they swayed from side to side. Harry shrugged, and not sure of himself what he'd really meant. Like, if you'd made other choices, what your life could be like. Draco thought on that, and Harry realized they'd sunk into the cushion a little, as their shoulders were resting comfortably side by side. "No," he said affirmatively after a while. "I think what's meant to happen, happens. And if something doesn't happen when it should, it'll find a way down the line. Like fate?" Draco shook his head. "No," he said thoughtfully. "That makes it sound like we don't have a choice. I just think the universe has a way of finding the right path for you, like water trickling through cracks. There might be hundreds of ways it could go, but eventually it'll find its destination." Harry was gazing at him, and once he finished talking, he blushed. "That's pretty profound," Harry said with a laugh, and to lighten the sudden serious mood. Draco shook his head. "It's all this 99C wine," he joked. It's rotted my brain." But Harry found that although they had been drinking for a while, he was only pleasantly drunk. Relaxed. He knew exactly what he was doing. "I think that's a nice idea. Sometimes it's easy to beat yourself up over things you've done." "Oh." "Oh?" scoffed Draco. I'm not saying you should just regret filling you up. Let regrets fill you up." He shook his head adorantly. "I mean, we're allowed to mess up, but then if we want the universe to help us, we will have to help it back and do something. It only works if you want to fix it, if you want to find the right path." "Hi, Harry," said one of the last girls sleepily from by the sofa. He'd not noticed the music had been shut off and everyone else had gone. "Blimey," he said with a start, looking at his watch. "It's almost 2 a.m. "You all right?" She and the guy with her nodded. We're just heading out. Are you going to stay?" Harry turned and looked at Draco. He was lounging over the sofa arm, content sipping a mug of tea. He smiled at Harry, and something coiled tighter around his chest. "I think we're okay for now," he said to the girl. I got keys." She nodded She nodded. Her and the last couple of people bid them good night leaving the two alone in the quiet, dimly lit office. Harry looked down at his mug, not uncomfortable, but contemplating. You think we need to work hard to make sure our regrets don't get the better of us? He said. He felt the couch shift. Shift. I lost it. Shift beside him, and Draco was once again sat next to him, their knees touching. Yes, he said, placing his tea down and lacing his fingers together between his legs. If life was easy, it would be boring. Harry smiled, setting his mug down. Who wants boring? He said. He moved carefully, but not looking up, just easing his hand over attentively before slipping his fingertips along the soft material of Draco's white trousers, skimming the bottom of his thigh, resting it on his knee. He held his breath. He didn't have to wait long, though, as Draco moved his own hand equally, carefully glancing his fingers across the back of Harry's knuckles. Harry flipped his palm up, and Draco's hand naturally slid into his, closing firmly. Harry just watched for a few moments as their thumbs rubbed little circles back and forth against each other's skin. He felt Draco shift, though, as he looked up into his silvery eyes, wide and naked. I don't want boring, Draco whispered, like he was a little afraid to get out the words. Good, said Harry. And that was how several hours later, the janitor found them, numerous used mugs scattered on the table, to find them voices hoarse, hands still locked, a newborn sense of hope, and purpose lifting their hearts as the morning sun rose. Well, guys, I'm so happy to declare that is not the end. I mean, that was the end of this chapter, but I mean, it ended happily. This was so adorable. I want to cry. I'm so sorry. I'm so proud of them. It's like being a proud mother, isn't it? Anyways, guys, I need to leave it here, and then tomorrow will be the last chapter of this part, but I will find out a new series that I will do, but it has to be Halloween themed, and it's gonna be Harry Potter. I promise you that, unless you want me to do creepypasta, and that's always Halloween. And I will say to you guys, please be happy, be healthy, and always be loving. If you are not a subscriber yet, please click the subscribe button down below and put on push notifications, please. Ding, ding, ding. And give my channel some love. And be nice to everyone who put a comment down below. I love you. I love you so much.